Hello, I'm Randy Weis. I am the practice manager for information infrastructure at LogixOne, and I'd like to talk for a few minutes about the recent acquisition of TwinStrata by EMC. I think this is a very interesting acquisition. I want to discuss a little bit about what the technology does, why I think it's important, and why I think it's a good thing for customers going forward. As an information infrastructure practice manager, my business is to look at how information is stored, delivered, protected, and so forth. And TwinStrata is a technology that I have looked at over the last 3 or 4 years and found several use cases for. And to make it simple, what TwinStrata is a cloud controller. So think of a SCSI controller. It's inserted into the back of a server. Data flows through that controller into a storage system, whether it be tape or disk, and it's intended to manage the flow of that data. SCSI controllers, everyone understands that concept. Fiber channel controller, basically the same thing, another way for data to flow from a server, which is where the application lives and is working, and into a storage system. iSCSI controllers, same thing. Cloud controller, what does that do? The cloud controller is a way for you to connect your application environment and the information that it is generating, reading and writing, and write it to cloud storage. Now, cloud storage is a logical device. So what TwinStrata is doing is it's providing an emulation of an iSCSI LUN to the application. Now, the application and the operating system think that there's a disk that they're writing to. And for all intents and purposes, it actually is a disk-based cache. So now you're writing data. Let's take backups as an example. Your backup system is writing to a backup repository, a backup target. That target is provisioned within a virtualized environment as storage. But what's happening is there's a network connection out to the cloud, and you're making a connection to cloud-based storage through an API, RESTful API, whatever the API is, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google Drive, whether it's an Atmos-based storage system, and this is where EMC comes in. So now you're writing data to, say, a 2 terabyte disk cache. That's the maximum size I think that they had developed as of the last time I understood it. That's a fair amount of data that you can accumulate there. Now what's happening is the data is being written to the cloud. Now the cloud is going to have limitations in terms of latency, because where are you writing this cloud data to? You don't really know. It's an address somewhere out in the cloud. And there's going to be bandwidth limitations. So if you're writing 5 terabytes of data, but you only have a 2 terabyte cache, picture a 5-gallon bucket with a hole in the bottom. The size of that hole is the bandwidth. If you have a big hole, you got a lot of bandwidth. So you're pouring sand or water into that bucket. That's your data. And it's trickling out the bottom, and that's your connection to the cloud. So TwinStrata allows you to have a disk-based cache, an emulation of local storage, but meanwhile, it's writing data to the cloud. Now, what are some of the things that can go wrong with this? Well, you could have too small a hole, and your data is coming in too fast, and you're going to overflow that bucket. That would be bad. In which case you will stop writing data, your application will crash, and that'll be the end of it. But for most of the applications that you do this sort of thing for, you calculate these things out. Now maybe you do end up having to provision a greater bandwidth. Maybe latency is such that bandwidth doesn't matter. But from all intents and purposes, TwinStrata is providing you a well-regulated, controlled way to write data to the cloud. Now, that doesn't really address the flip side of it, which is retrieving data from the cloud, but that's not what TwinStrata was designed to solve. There's another great aspect of TwinStrata, and that is that it provides encryption. So you hold the keys. Again, an analogy. You are storing things in public warehouse, in a public storage room, and the keys to your storage unit are available to the people within the storage unit as well. That's part of the contract. Now, somebody decides to steal those keys, somebody figures out a way to break into those keys, now they're inside of your storage unit, and they can take all your stuff and run away with it. Now, picture that inside your storage unit, you now have set up your own lockers with your own keys and your own security. That's what TwinStrata is doing. It's giving you the ability to control access to your data, even within a public cloud situation. So you've got 2 layers of security, one from the internet, and 2 from within that cloud storage infrastructure. Why did EMC buy them? Well, I'll tell you, if I had the money, I would have bought them. Because if you think about this, this is a great way to solve the number one problem with cloud storage, which is latency. And number two problem, the perception of security issues. It does not solve performance necessarily. And I say necessarily because you can imagine scenarios in which you're writing data to the cloud and it's going to end up in a storage system that may or may not be object-based, which tends to have pretty much infinite capacity, or it may or may not end up in a performance-based cloud storage environment that an infrastructure as a service is riding on. So again, what I'm talking about is having a server-based infrastructure running in a cloud, virtualized machines, your true cloud computing, and you're writing data to that cloud environment in some fashion. It's one of the ways you input data into your infrastructure. Or you're writing data out as a backup repository. So again, why did EMC buy this? Well, it's a difficult scenario to imagine how can I write data to the cloud with latency and bandwidth issues and security issues. So EMC's strategy for information infrastructure is what I'm honing in on, and this is why I've kind of changed the focus of my own practice within Logix 1. Looking at storage as just storage takes it out of the context of the data center. Looking at data as part of your application infrastructure makes it information infrastructure. There's value to this data. That makes it information and knowledge. So my job is to help you manage your information infrastructure by all tools at my disposal. And this was a key piece that I think was missing from a lot of people's implementation of information infrastructure.